said he's open to a face-to-face meeting with Zelensky, but only if he comes to Moscow.
China flexed its military muscle at its politically charged Victory Day parade, showcasing never-before-seen missiles, tanks and fighter jets.
Russia launched 500 drones and missiles at several regions in Ukraine overnight into Wednesday morning. The European Commission has launched the ratification process for the trade agreement with the Mercosur countries, including Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay and Uruguay. Russian President Vladimir Putin said he's open to a face-to-face meeting with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky, but only if he comes to Moscow. Putin spoke at a press conference following the Victory Day parade in Beijing. He said U.S. President Donald Trump had asked the two to sit down together. The Russian leader said he never excluded the possibility of meeting Zelensky, but once again questioned the legitimacy of his presidency.
Поэтому это путь в никуда. Если просто с действующим главой администрации, так сказать, аккуратно проводить встречи. Можно. Я никогда не отказывался от этого.
The Kremlin has repeatedly brought up the issue of Zelensky's presidential term having expired, although Ukraine legally cannot hold elections while it is at war and with a portion of its territory under occupation. The latest words from Putin come after a flurry of meetings organized by Trump in August, including a summit with Putin in Alaska, quickly followed by another one with Zelensky and European and NATO leaders in Washington.
Thanks so much, Mr. President.
Citing different reasons, Moscow has previously repeatedly rejected the possibility of direct talks with Zelensky. Russia launched 500 drones and missiles at several regions in Ukraine overnight into Wednesday morning. The attacks targeted mainly western and central Ukraine and injured at least 5 people, the Ukrainian Air Force have said. President Volodymyr Zelensky said mostly civilian infrastructure and energy facilities were targeted. The Ukrainian leader warned that the strikes were demonstrative and urged its allies to apply more pressure onto Moscow. It comes amid ongoing efforts by European leaders to bolster Ukraine's defenses, which follows so far unsuccessful US-led peace talks. On Wednesday, UK Defence Secretary John Healey arrived in Kyiv for talks with his Ukrainian counterpart Denis Shmyhal, where the two will discuss joint defence efforts. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin traveled to China to meet Chinese leader Xi Jinping and North Korea's Kim Jong-un, both of whom the US has accused of continuing to support Russia's war efforts.
China flexed its military muscle at its politically charged military parade, showcasing some never-before-seen missiles, tanks and fighter jets. Among the military hardware, China unveiled a new intercontinental ballistic missile, giant underwater drones and an LY-1 laser weapon. The parade also featured several new hypersonic warheads, an area where Beijing is advancing. Experts noted that China has been focused on developing its missile and rocket forces as a key part of its defense strategy to counter US naval superiority. At the event, Chinese leader Xi Jinping praised the armed forces and cast China as an unstoppable force. The parade, marking the 80th anniversary of China's victory over Japan in World War II, took place in Tiananmen Square and was attended by leaders from across the world. It showcased how Beijing has spearheaded a modernization drive in the People's Liberation Army. Xi has funneled billions into developing weapons to turn the PLA into what he says is a world-class fighting force by the mid-century. The US has noted Beijing's rapid military build-up, declaring China was outpacing the US through 2 decades of focused military investment in its national defense strategy of 2022.
The European Commission continues to fiercely defend its trade deal with the United States. It's been receiving mounting criticism from members of the European Parliament, and fresh tariff threats from Donald Trump are casting doubt over the agreement's viability.
Do you take these threats seriously? Do you see it as a new chapter in the trade war? And do you think you can hold your ground and defend our sovereignty after making so many concessions to Trump? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that if you look at from the perspective, the first and foremost, I would ask the question, and you are a high-quality journalist, so we will be able to do the comparison. Tell me who got better deal than the European Union. Just tell me. I would like to read it, show me.
Under the deal, which is already in effect, the majority of EU goods bound for the US are subject to a 15% tariff. In contrast, the majority of US goods bound for the EU are exempt from duties. A certain group of products are not taxed when they benefit from a 0-for-0 scheme. Brussels, however, failed to negotiate the inclusion of wines and spirits, a strategic sector for the bloc. The European Commission has launched the ratification process for the trade agreement with the Mercosur countries, including Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. In order to address concerns raised by some member states like France, as well as European farmers, the Commission is proposing the inclusion of safeguard clauses.
Should the market disruption occur, the proposed 6.3 billion euros of a unity safety net under the next multi-annual financial framework stands ready to support the agricultural sector. In addition, the Commission is proposing to supplement the agreement with a legal act to operationalise the bilateral safeguard mechanism in our agreement with Mercosur.
Specifically, the Commission plans to monitor imports of sensitive agricultural products such as beef, sugar and poultry, and will report on them every 6 months. If market disturbances are observed in a member country, the Commission will have about 20 days to react. Investigations may be launched in the event of a sudden increase in imports or a fall in the price of sensitive agricultural products in the EU. The bar is set at 10%. However, an expert told Euronews that the agricultural sector remains skeptical about the effectiveness of the proposed safeguard clauses.
Le débat aujourd'hui s'est focalisé sur les clauses de sauvegarde en cas de perturbation des marchés, mais sur le cœur du problème, qui est le différentiel dans les pratiques de production entre ce qui se fait en Amérique latine et ce qui se fait au sein de l'Union européenne, où on a des exigences extrêmement fortes à l'égard des producteurs agricoles. Là, ce sujet n'est pas traité.
The agreement now awaits a vote in the European Parliament and must be approved by a qualified majority of member states. Historically, France, Poland and Italy have opposed the deal, but growing pressure from US tariffs could prompt them to reconsider their position.
U.S. President Donald Trump is applying pressure on Democrat governors of several states to accept his proposal of deploying armed troops to secure their cities. The initiative comes off the back of what Trump described as a successful experiment in Washington, where he says crime, once running rampant for years, is now non-existent. The U.S. president described cities like Chicago and Baltimore as hellholes, calling their leadership incompetent for not accepting his offer.
So in the last 3 weeks, he's lost almost 20 people killed. There's no place in the world, including you can go to Afghanistan, you can go to places that you would think of. They don't even come close to this. Chicago is a hellhole right now. Baltimore is a hellhole right now. I would love to have Governor Pritzker call me. I'd gain respect for him and say, we do have a problem, and we'd love you to send in the troops, because you know what? The people, they have to be protected.
In an almost immediate response, officials in the state of Illinois resolutely rejected Trump's pleas, asserting that the U.S. president has ulterior motives.
Chicago does not want troops on our streets. I also have experience asking the president for assistance, just to have the rug pulled out from underneath me when execution meets reality. None of this is about fighting crime or making Chicago safer. None of it. For Trump, it's about testing his power and producing a political drama to cover up for his corruption.
Trump said, however, that he'll deploy troops with or without the governor's requests, but hasn't indicated when that might be. Speaking to journalists in the White House, Trump noted that he has an obligation to protect the people, which comes above what Washington has previously called political games. Trump's policing initiative has sparked fears among many lawmakers who accuse him of attempting to subvert democracy and bypass checks and balances.
Which European regions have the highest density of cars per 1,000 inhabitants? Eurostat data says there's an average of 0.56 passenger cars per inhabitant in the European Union. The top 3 regions with the highest rate are all in the mountainous northern part of Italy, the Aosta Valley, with nearly 2.5 cars per resident, the Trento province and the Bolzano province. The Aosta Valley record rate in particular is influenced by favorable taxation rules. On the other end of the spectrum is the French overseas territory of Mayotte, followed by Greece's Peloponnesus and another overseas French department, Guyane. Some European capitals also feature among the places with the lowest rates of cars per 1,000 inhabitants, like Berlin, Vienna, Brussels and Stockholm. Stockholm is also the European region with the second highest share of electric cars, along with the Netherlands' Utrecht, both at 6.6%. The Dutch province of Flevoland is first, with 12.8% of cars being electric.